Welcome to this exploration of the Stone Age, a vast period of human prehistory that spans an almost incomprehensible length of time. When I first began researching this topic, I was struck by just how long the Stone Age lasted, roughly 3.4 million years. That's 99.3% of human technological history. It's a span of time so vast that it's difficult for our minds to truly comprehend. To put it in perspective, if the entire history of human technology were compressed into a single day, the Stone Age would occupy all but the final 4.5 minutes. It's a period that saw the birth of human consciousness, the development of language, and the first stirrings of what we might recognise as culture. But what exactly do we mean when we talk about the Stone Age? Well, as the name suggests, it's defined by the widespread use of stone tools. These weren't just any stones, mind you, but carefully crafted implements designed for specific purposes. The Stone Age saw the development of tools with edges for cutting, points for piercing, and percussion surfaces for pounding. It's a testament to human ingenuity that our ancestors were able to fashion such a wide array of tools from what, to our modern eyes, might seem like rather limited materials. But I think it's important to note that stone wasn't the only material used during this period. Bone, wood, and other organic materials were also widely employed, though they've left less of a mark in the archaeological record due to their perishable nature. The end of the Stone Age is marked by the advent of metalworking, a technological leap that fundamentally changed human society. But it's crucial to understand that this transition didn't happen overnight, nor did it occur simultaneously across the globe. In Western Asia, for instance, the Stone Age gave way to the Bronze Age around 3000 BC. But in other parts of the world, stone tools continued to be the primary technology for millennia afterwards. In fact, in some isolated parts of the world, stone tools were still in use well into the 20th century. This serves as a reminder that human technological development isn't a simple, linear progression, but a complex tapestry of advances and continuities that vary greatly across time and space. Though some simple metalworking of malleable metals, particularly the use of gold and copper for purposes of ornamentation, was known in the Stone Age, it is the melting and smelting of copper that marks the end of the Stone Age. Let's delve into the origins of stone tool use, a topic that's been the subject of intense archaeological scrutiny. The oldest indirect evidence we have for stone tool use comes from Ethiopia's Lower Awash Valley. Here, researchers have found fossilised animal bones bearing tool marks that date back an astonishing 3.4 million years. But it's important to note that this is indirect evidence. We're not looking at the tools themselves, but rather the marks they left behind. The oldest actual stone tools we've discovered come from the site of Lamekwi III in West Turkana, Kenya. These tools, dubbed Lamekwian, are dated to about 3.3 million years ago. Now you might be wondering, as I certainly did when I first encountered this information, who exactly made these tools? The honest answer is that we don't know for certain. The tools predate the earliest known members of our genus, Homo, by several 100,000 years. Some researchers have suggested that they might have been made by Australopithecus, or even earlier hominins. This uncertainty highlights one of the most fascinating aspects of studying human prehistory: the constant potential for new discoveries to radically reshape our understanding of our own past. The earliest stone tools were remarkably simple by our standards, but they represent a monumental leap in cognitive ability. These older one tools, as they're called, were essentially stone cobbles that had been struck with another stone to produce a sharp edge. It's a technique that might seem rudimentary to us, but it required a level of planning, hand-eye coordination, and understanding of material properties that was unprecedented in the animal kingdom. What's particularly interesting is that this basic technique, what archaeologists call Mode 1 technology, persisted for an incredibly long time. Older one-style tools continued to be made and used for nearly 2 million years, a span of time that's difficult for us to truly comprehend. Around 1.7 million years ago, we see a significant shift in stone tool technology with the emergence of what's known as the Acheulean tradition. This marks the beginning of Mode 2 technology, characterised by the production of large cutting tools, particularly hand axes. These tools represent a significant advance in cognitive ability and technical skill. unlike the earlier Oldowan tools, which were essentially opportunistic, created by knocking a few flakes off a cobble. Acheulean tools required a mental template. The toolmaker had to be able to visualize the finished product and work towards it through a series of deliberate steps. The Acheulean tradition is often associated with Homo erectus, and it's tempting to see it as a signature technology of our genus. However, as with many aspects of human prehistory, the reality is more complex. We know that Homo erectus was making Acheulean tools, but we can't say for certain that they were the first or only hominin species to do so. What we can say is that the Acheulean represents a significant cognitive leap. These tools required not just greater manual dexterity, but also the ability to plan and execute a complex series of actions to achieve a predetermined goal. It's not too much of a stretch to see in these tools the first glimmerings of what we might recognize as human-like thought. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Acheulean tradition is its longevity and geographical spread. Acheulean tools were being made for over 1 million years, and they've been found across Africa, Europe, and parts of Asia. This widespread distribution tells us something important about the cognitive abilities of early humans. Not only were they capable of creating these sophisticated tools, but they were able to pass on the knowledge of how to make them across vast distances and over incredibly long periods of time. It's a testament to the power of cultural transmission, a uniquely human ability that would prove crucial to our species' success. The primary technological distinction remaining between Oldowan and the Acheulean is the preference for large flakes, greater than 10 centimeters, as blanks for making large cutting tools, hand axes and cleavers, in the Acheulean. As we move into what archaeologists call the Middle Stone Age, we begin to see evidence of cognitive abilities that are strikingly similar to our own. This period, which in Africa began around 300,000 years ago, saw the emergence of new tool-making techniques and, crucially, the first clear evidence of symbolic thought. It's during this time that we start to see the earliest examples of what we might call art, objects created not for practical use, but for aesthetic or symbolic purposes. This is a development that I find particularly fascinating, as it represents a fundamental shift in how our ancestors interacted with and understood their world. The Middle Stone Age also saw significant advances in tool-making technology. We see the development of prepared core techniques, which allowed for more efficient use of raw materials and the production of a wider variety of tool types. This includes the first clear evidence of composite tools, tools made from multiple components, such as stone points hafted onto wooden shafts to create spears. These developments suggest not just greater technical skill, but also more complex planning, and perhaps even more sophisticated social organisation. After all, the creation and use of these tools would have required cooperation and the sharing of knowledge within and between groups. But perhaps the most significant development of the Middle Stone Age was the emergence of our own species, Homo sapiens. The earliest fossils that we can confidently assign to our species date to around 300,000 years ago, coinciding with the beginning of the Middle Stone Age in Africa. This convergence of biological and cultural evolution is unlikely to be coincidental. The cognitive abilities that allowed for the creation of more sophisticated tools and symbolic objects were likely the same abilities that gave our species its evolutionary edge. It's during this period that we start to see evidence of behaviours that we would recognise as uniquely human, not just tool use, which after all is not unique to our species, but abstract thought, symbolic representation, and perhaps even the beginnings of language. As we move into the Upper Paleolithic, beginning around 50,000 years ago, we see what some archaeologists have termed a creative explosion. This period saw a dramatic increase in the diversity and sophistication of stone tools, as well as an explosion in art and personal ornamentation. It's during this time that we start to see the first clear evidence of behaviours that we would recognise as fully modern: complex social structures, long-distance trade networks, and rich symbolic and artistic traditions. The Upper Paleolithic also saw the spread of our species out of Africa and across the globe, a process that would ultimately lead to us becoming the dominant large mammal on every continent except Antarctica. One of the most striking features of the Upper Paleolithic is the sudden appearance of cave art. The earliest known examples, such as those found in the Chauvet Cave in France, date to around 36,000 years ago. These paintings, often depicting animals with remarkable skill and naturalism, represent a quantum leap in human cognitive abilities. They suggest not just the ability to create realistic representations, but also complex symbolic thought, and perhaps even the beginnings of narrative and myth-making. It's tempting to see in these paintings the first stirrings of what we might call human culture, a shared set of symbols and meanings that bind a community together. The Upper Paleolithic also saw significant advances in technology. We see the development of new tool types, such as bone and antler tools, as well as the first clear evidence of technologies like sewing and weaving. These developments would have had profound implications for human society, allowing for better clothing, more efficient hunting techniques, and perhaps even new forms of social organisation. It's during this period that we start to see evidence of more permanent settlements, suggesting that our ancestors were beginning to develop stronger ties to particular landscapes. This, in turn, may have led to the development of more complex social structures, and perhaps even the beginnings of what we might recognise as politics. The earliest known battle occurred during the Mesolithic period at a site in Egypt known as Cemetery 117. The final phase of the Stone Age, known as the Neolithic or New Stone Age, saw perhaps the most profound transformation in human society since the emergence of our species. This period, which began around 12,000 years ago in some parts of the world, was characterized by the development of agriculture and animal domestication. This shift from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle to one based on farming and herding had profound implications for human society, leading to the development of permanent settlements, more complex social hierarchies, and ultimately, the emergence of the first civilizations. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Neolithic, in my view, is how it represents a fundamental shift in how humans interacted with their environment. Rather than simply exploiting naturally occurring resources, our ancestors began to actively shape their environment to suit their needs. This required not just new technologies, but also new ways of thinking about the world. The concept of property, for instance, likely became much more important once people were investing significant time and effort into cultivating particular plots of land. Similarly, the need to store and distribute surplus food may have led to the development of more complex social structures and perhaps even the beginnings of formal political systems. The Neolithic also saw significant advances in technology. We see the development of new tool types, such as polished stone axes, which were crucial for clearing land for agriculture. Pottery, too, became widespread during this period, allowing for better food storage and preparation. But perhaps the most significant technological development of the Neolithic was the emergence of metallurgy. While the use of copper and gold for ornamentation dates back to the Paleolithic, it's during the Neolithic that we start to see the first evidence of true metalworking, the ability to smelt and shape metals. This development would ultimately lead to the Bronze Age and the end of the Stone Age proper. It's a testament to the ingenuity of our ancestors that they were able to make such profound technological leaps with what, to our modern eyes, might seem like very limited resources. The first large-scale constructions were built, including settlement towers and walls, e.g. Jericho, Tel es-Sultan, and ceremonial sites, e.g. Stonehenge. As we conclude our journey through the Stone Age, it's worth taking a moment to reflect on the immense span of time we've covered and the profound changes that occurred during this period. From the first tentative use of stone tools by our early hominin ancestors to the complex societies of the late Neolithic, the Stone Age saw the emergence of almost everything we might consider uniquely human. Language, art, complex social structures, and technological innovation all have their roots in this vast expanse of prehistory. One of the most striking aspects of studying the Stone Age for me is how it challenges our notions of progress and human nature. It's tempting to see the story of human prehistory as a steady march of progress, with each new development building on the last in a linear fashion. But the reality is far more complex and, I would argue, far more interesting. We see periods of rapid innovation followed by long stretches of apparent stasis. We see technologies being invented, forgotten and reinvented, and we see different groups of humans taking wildly different paths in response to similar challenges, it's a reminder that there's no single, predetermined path of human development, but rather a complex interplay of environmental, social, and cognitive factors. Finally, I think it's important to recognise that while the Stone Age may seem impossibly remote to us, its legacy continues to shape our world in profound ways. The cognitive abilities that allowed our ancestors to create complex stone tools are the same abilities that allow us to create smartphones and spacecraft. The social structures that emerged in the first farming villages are the distant ancestors of our modern political systems. And the symbolic thinking that gave rise to the first cave paintings is the same capacity that underlies all of human culture, from literature and art to science and philosophy. In studying the Stone Age, we're not just learning about our past, we're gaining insight into what it means to be human. To describe any living group as primitive or Stone Age inevitably implies that they are living representatives of some earlier stage of human development that the majority of humankind has left behind. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the Stone Age. I hope you found it as fascinating as I have. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Your support really does make a difference and helps me to continue creating content like this. And do let me know in the comments what other aspects of human prehistory you'd be interested in learning more about. There's so much more to explore, from the emergence of the first cities to the great migrations that shaped our modern world. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the incredible story of our shared human past.